So at the end of the book, he says at the end of this chapter, control reality or it controls you. This is great to apply to anything that you can call out. I actually experienced this firsthand with a test myself, my realtor's exam for the state of California, which is notorious. And I filled out all the things and I was the first person to leave. That's undesirable. Maybe somebody's giving you an attitude at a government office or... Hello, 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 Transurfer and the Transurfing Curious. My name is Renee Garcia, guys, and this is TransurfingTV, y'all. And today on TransurfingTV, I'm going to read a little bit from, I have got a massive stack of books over here and finger puppets and sunglasses. I was getting ready to topple over. I'm just hoping it doesn't do it in the middle of the video. I'm going to read from this book today, Forward to the Past. This is one of the originals. It's number 3. And there's a part in here, Reality Inversion. It's kind of like the advantage method, except it's a little more about just like responding to reality in a way that is not in line with the circumstances that are playing out, to keep yourself elevated and to keep yourself, you know, moving in the trajectory that you have chosen for yourself, not allowing yourself to get like hooked by a pendulum and ripped apart by pendulums. Because this is usually what happens. It's not actually the pendulum that does anything, right? It's our response to the pendulum, or it's not the event, it's our response to the event. It's not the argument, it's what usually happens as a result of the argument if you're, you know, battling with somebody in your layer of reality. So this is kind of a, I don't want to say it's a lost concept, but it's definitely not one of the ones that we really, you know, talk a lot about in the transurfing community. And I think it's really valuable because for me personally, I mean, this is how I keep everything running. You know, I'm functioning at an extremely high level. I have lots and lots of tasks and systems and things that I have to do, responsibilities throughout my day, with transurfing, with my other businesses, my domestic life. I mean, we all do, right? And when we lose ourselves, it's kind of like a vacuum, you know, effect. We get sucked out of what we can do to be productive in our external environment, with our endeavors, with our intentions, all that stuff. And again, it's not the pendulum or the argument or the event or the trigger. It's our response to it that's the vacuum. So I hope this will be a little clarifying when I read this very end part. It's at the very, very end of this book, and it's powerful, and I hope that you will enjoy it. Before I get started, remember to like this video, comment below, subscribe to this channel, join us on the Facebook group, the International Transurfing Institute Facebook group, follow me on Instagram, course links below, website below, Spreadshirt, all the transurfing t-shirts, all below, check it out. Okay, so this is called Reality Inversion. Actually, I'm not sure if this is exactly the inversion technique part of the book, but we're going to find out because there is something called the inversion technique. I think that might be the translation that's in the steps 1 through 5 book, and then this is where it originated, reality inversion. But let's get into it and see what he has to say. Reality is relentlessly moving its frames along the film of time. Holidays come and go. It's such a shame that they so quickly come to an end. Hemingway was right. You always need to carry the feast with you. But that doesn't always work. The feast suddenly gets lost, and all the colors of life fade. In your heart, there is emptiness and anguish, sometimes unexplainable. Sometimes it is there for no apparent reason. The strangest thing is that the world submerges into darkness swiftly and eagerly, while illumination surfaces very slowly after agonizing suspense. The tendency of man towards being negative does its dark deed. Depression is when your soul and mind agree on that you feel bad. In that case, external intention is inevitably moving reality to the dark areas of the alternative space. The mirror reacts quickly without delay, and there is no light for a long time after this. Because you feel bad, and with this attitude of yours, you are painting a layer of your world even blacker. Boo! Sometimes things are so bad that you don't even have the strength to remember about transurfing or anything of the kind, how to break free from this vicious circle and straighten out your reality. Actually, practically speaking, it is rather difficult, and yet there is one radical method called reality inversion. This was a very long time ago, but quite recently, just 20 years ago. At the time, we physics students were studying at the positively terrifying faculty, where lecturers were behaving brutally with all the atrocities of the Stone Age. 75 people would register for the course, but no more than 25 would get to the end. In an environment like that, there was one active law: want to live, get to know how to laugh. That's kind of like, kind of like the saying, laugh or you'll cry, right? We came up with a game then, which afterwards I forgot about. It was only later that I realized the game was conducted according to the rules of transurfing. The point of the game was to turn one's attitude to the situation on its head. That is, to perform a kind of inversion. If someone is feeling bad, the pendulum rule makes him suffer, worry, makes him bend under the weight of the problems and run amok. With the rules of our game stated that you need to do the other way around. How we did it, you be the judge. I experienced a rather joyous disappointment. The thing is that there was an incredibly lucky misfortune. Something irreversible has happened, which immediately made things better for me. Some handsome gentleman in a car charmingly covered me in mud. All my attempts were in vain, and that became the keystone to success. She doesn't love me. No, it is good. It is too good to be true. The damn snake is faking it well. He left me. I was hee-hawing like the Bud Benny horse. Must be a Russian thing. And so on, along the same lines with all kinds of refinements. The only thing interrupting our game was the hysterical loud laughter that was accompanying all these transformations of failure. When you are attending a lecture, no one will let you roar with laughter. So the muffled giggling turned into some kind of rumbling, snorting, grunting, chuckling, gurgling, and other sounds that hooved animals and amphibians are capable of producing. During the break, the accumulated energy spilled out into a completely idiotic howl, quite in the spirit of Castaneda. What is happening here from the standpoint of transurfing is that you understand yourself. Firstly, any kind of importance drops immediately and excess potential disappears. Secondly, the parameters of radiation of thought energy, of delight, even an idiotic one, in no way correspond to a sad life track. Thus, the transfer occurs at once. The mirror reacts quickly because the soul and mind finally drew a sigh of relief. As a result, reality is straightening out. Once we were about to have an exam on the theory of probability, our lecturer was a horrible man, to put it mildly. Student hall the night before the exam, a sinister night. My friend and I are racking our brains over how to straighten out the situation. Who knows what probability is and how to calculate it? It is a mystery covered in darkness. And our hags are sitting cramming away. Well, that doesn't suit us. Are we men or what? Bastards, a hag peeked through the door, having overheard our conversation. Quiet, you unfortunate one. We are gentlemen, jerks, young scientists, morons. In the end, someone suggests we play preference all night long. I said then, no, guys, this is way too much for me. I am going to sleep. But the gentlemen, dressed up in suits and ties and with cigars in their mouth, the cheap kind, and with bottles of some kind of dubious liquids on the table, they sat down to play cards. In the morning, I found them at the very same table. Idiots, I tell them, it won't work. But they got dressed up, roused themselves, and went to their dorm. As a result, it really didn't work. They got C's, but me, a completely different story. I got a D. Truly, it was a stroke of luck. They envied me so much. They kept bugging me, looking into my eyes and questioning me, trembling. How did you manage to do this? And I was walking around with my head proudly in the air. You see, I told you. I hope you understand, gentlemen, where I wish you to insert these pitiful C's. That day we had a grand celebration of my victory. We had great fun, and on the next day I retook the exam and got an A. That is all. Have no doubt it is not something I made up. If the inversion is made properly, the result won't make you wait. The result won't make you wait. I'll break that down in a second. When and what if you are in such a terrible mood that you just can't bear to do an inversion, then you need to make your mood even worse. Bring it to grotesque absurdity. If the contrast of the slide is brought up to the max, it will at some point turn into a negative. That's pretty much how we were doing it. A young woman is depressed. To make matters worse, she dresses up in black and declares that she is in mourning. Everyone comes up to her, expresses their condolences, and takes an interest in how she has decided to take her life and when it will happen. Finally, she is surrounded by a group of scoundrels that start singing a depressing, sorrowful song with wailings, whinings, wringings of hands, basically the whole shebang, worthy of respectable savages. Gradually, the savage songs turn into a prolonged howl, then into a real dog bark, and finally, when there is no longer any strength left to stand it, everybody, including the lady in black, starts roaring with laughter like mad. Of course, everything is easy when you have such a fun gang, but what about when you are by yourself? You have to manage on your own. Ways of doing it? Well, that is already a matter of preference. Joking aside, you really need to bring the state you are in to the point of absurdity. Only you should do it with the help of substances that alter the state of your consciousness. Otherwise, only you shouldn't do it. Only you shouldn't do it with the help of substances that alter the state of your consciousness. Otherwise, you will feel really bad. But actually, I personally do not like applying the method of contrast on my own, thus I do not recommend it. I cite it here for your information only. Feeling heavy-hearted, depressed, tells of an extremely low level of energy and intention. It is better to keep your energy at a healthy level, and then there won't be any depressive states. As you see, reality inversion is very similar to the principle of coordination of intention. The difference is only that inversion is more radical and full of humor. The summary on this says, if you do not control reality, it controls you. Okay. So do you get what he was talking about here? They actually turned the exam into a game of seeing who could get the lower score. And from my understanding of it, the guys stayed up late, playing cards and drinking alcohol to see if they could actually fail the test the next day. And Vadim got an even lower score than them, which they then celebrated. So I kind of know what he's talking about here. I do this a lot in my reality. It's playing the negative slide, but actually going into it with like a very theatrical sort of attitude where you are blowing the thing up from the inside. And as he stated at the end of the story, he got the D, but then the next time he went in to take the test, he got an A. I actually experienced this firsthand with a test myself, my realtor's exam for the state of California, which is notorious notorious. Lots and lots and lots of people take this test and fail and try over and over and over again. I think there was somebody at my office that had taken it like 10 times and had failed each time. So I sort of used this technique, the inversion technique, and this isn't for everyone. It's very much along the lines of a negative slide in the sense that you're not doing the typical stuff that most people do to create their own reality, which inadvertently builds up excess potential. So one scenario, which was not what I did, but one scenario that I could have gone and took my test is like ran a visualization that I was gonna take my test and I was gonna ace it. I was going to pass the first time, and I was going to go in there and sit down and not feel nervous about the questions and get through it, and at the end of the thing look at my paper and see that I pass. The problem with this scenario is it actually creates a lot of excess potential because you are anticipating an expectation that may or may not line up in reality at that time. So I kind of knew this going in, and I thought to myself, I'm going to fail this test at first. I'm going to fail this test at first, and I'm going to fail it in a fantastic way. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to just like, I'm going to cartoonishly fail at this test. And I told everyone that I was going to go in and fail at the test. And I walked in and I had absolutely no expectations of passing the test at all. Now, I had studied and I had studied quite a bit, but I really did write off that initial exam as a complete loss. And it was kind of an interesting scenario because I actually had to drive almost 2 hours to go to take the test back and forth. So it was a pretty big deal. Like if I didn't pass it, I was gonna have to go back, again and do it again. And you gotta schedule it and it's weeks out and all this stuff. So there was a little bit of like, I did want to pass, but I knew in inverting the situation, I would completely dissolve excess potential and elevated importance, and balancing forces would not come for me. And there was really a complete absence of balancing forces. So I went in and I kind of walked in like almost jokingly. And I know this sounds weird, like, why would you do that? But I turned the situation into a spectacle. I sat down and I just imagined that I was going to fail the test. And I filled out all the things. And I was the first person to leave, and I took my test result to the car. I didn't look at it. I called my grandma on the phone, FaceTime, and I was like, Grandma, tell me what my test says. And she's like, oh my God, you passed it. And I was like, no way. So what this has to do with is thought energy and frequency of thought. And when you go about doing something that is important in a way where you're almost making a joke out of it, trivializing it, and stepping into it in a way that's definitely not serious, your thought energy is not tense and tightened up and off balance. Again, expectation, excess potential is what causes a situation to go haywire. So when you can step into this other role and kind of like go into a scenario comically, this will neutralize a lot of that funky energy that could theoretically disrupt your intentions. The other way that the inversion technique is helpful is to, and this is really the roots of advantage from my understanding of this knowledge, is when we respond to an unfortunate circumstance or event, you're not thrown off that layer of reality that you've worked to get yourself to. Transurfing is a practice. We go up, we go down, we go up, we go down. Now, if you are unstable in the alternative space, which I will talk a lot about in my book that will be coming out in a few months, my instability in the alternative space, going up and down in lifelines radically, right? And if you can take this concept, the inversion concept, and apply it to anything that plays out in your external environment that has already happened, and you catch yourself. Now, the story that Vadim gives here and the story that I just gave is to disrupt the typical frequency of tension and needing to succeed with comical, taking any error that you might make in stride with comedy and lightheartedness. This is using this method before an event. But if something transpires, like let's say you're driving down the street and you get a flat tire, now, getting out and declaring to yourself, oh my God, how wonderful. I love flat tires. I love calling AAA. I love having my car towed. I love, and obviously this is radical, and most people, are going to be like, that sounds insane. But what it does is it helps you to maintain your position on your layer of reality without dipping down and then having to, expend energy to get yourself back up to where you fell down from. So it's kind of like you're playing tricks on energy levels, thought patterns, and layers of reality with the inversion techniques. You can use this in lots of different ways. It's a really good technique to use on a person. Like, let's say you go to some place where you're getting something that's undesirable. Maybe somebody's giving you an attitude at a government office, or, something just like he said, professors, anybody that is in conflict with what it is that you're intending. If you don't buy into that script by feeding back the same energy that's coming in your direction, and you wait and be like, okay, wait a second, I see exactly what's playing out here. I'm going to stop this cyclical thing that can get going and retract, and then come back with something that is not typical, right? Like a atypical behavior. This throws the other character off. They don't know how to respond, but usually it disrupts what it is they're doing, and they can seemingly U-turn out of an attitude or a stance that they have taken against you, and you're actually influencing the mirror via this inversion technique. So at the end of the book, he says at the end of this chapter, control reality or it controls you. This is great to apply to anything that you can call out that you are building excess potential over that is going to happen, or something that transpires that you would typically deem unfortunate or unwanted, and go about applying this inversion technique to make certain that you don't get caught up in a script that is going to send you plummeting down to some of those lower levels of reality. So let me know your thoughts on this video, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you find benefit in it, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.